The tale I'm about to share revolves around me and my now ex-girlfriend. But who would thought back then that she could be so deceitful? It's surprising how the truth unfolded after years of knowing each other. That's the crux of it all. So, how did everything begin? Isabella was my very first girlfriend. She patiently awaited my return from the army, hoping I'd finish my education and find my footing. I, on my part, waited earnestly and with unwavering loyalty. I refrained from indulging in anything extravagant. Parties and wild nights out simply weren't for me. I didn't just run home. I soared back on the wings of love. There she was, my beauty, my beloved, waiting for me. At that time, we were living together in a rented apartment, and days slipped by unnoticed as we gradually prepared for our wedding. My parents had long been hinting that it was about time for grandchildren, but we were in no rush. Then came that twist. Isabella was sent off for 2 weeks of refresher training. I wasn't keen on the idea of a breakup, but what could I do? On Saturday, she packed her suitcase and even prepared meals for me for the first time. I took her to the train on Sunday. The week without her dragged on interminably. Weekdays were manageable, but weekends left me feeling restless. I tackled all the household chores that I'd neglected, assembled a kitchen set, yet I decided to hold off on organizing the dishes. After all, women have a special knack for creating a cozy atmosphere, so I thought it best to wait for Isabella's return. As the second week of her absence drew to a close, the day when we would be reunited grew nearer. My spirits were soaring. The organization had pre-purchased round-trip tickets, so I knew exactly which car my beloved would be arriving in. Sleep eluded me that night as my imagination ran wild, filled with vivid daydreams that made it impossible to settle down. Finally, after rushing through my morning routine and having a quick breakfast, I darted to the train station. Only minutes remained before the train would arrive. I didn't call to let her know I was already on the platform. I wanted to surprise her. In the distance, a horn sounded, and I felt the vibrations of the approaching train underfoot. I stood concealed behind a pillar, completely out of sight. The platform was nearly empty due to the early hour of the train. A handful of people were preparing to board, while a few others awaited arrivals. Then the conductor stepped down onto the platform, meticulously wiping down the handrails before allowing the passengers to disembark. First, a man emerged from the doorway, followed by an elderly woman hauling a massive trunk, and then several more passengers trickled out. Suddenly, I spotted a familiar silhouette, and an urge to leap from my hiding spot hit me, but something unseen held me back. I wanted to see how Isabella would react if she didn't notice me among the crowd of greeters. With a graceful leap, she hopped off the train's platform and turned to retrieve her suitcase from the hands of a guy who had followed closely behind. I assumed he was just a travel companion, but this wasn't typical behavior for fellow travelers. The way he stared at my girlfriend was as if she were his wife. Yet, Isabella seemed completely oblivious to my presence, not even glancing around or trying to find me. I pulled out my phone and dialed her number. When Isabella noticed my call, she quickly hit the reject button, and they started heading toward the station. I trailed behind them, watching as they stopped at the counter. While that guy ordered coffee, I stepped up behind her. "Hey," I greeted her. "What are you doing here?" Isabella asked, taken aback. "I called, but it seems like you've got someone to take you home," I replied, my tone sharp. Just then the guy approached, coffee in hand. "Isabella, here's your coffee with 2 sugars, just the way you like it." "What do you mean, the way you like it? How does he know so much about you? Can't you at least explain?" I pressed. "Sweetheart, let's not do this here. Come home, and I'll explain everything, she urged, her voice softening. At that moment, the interloper, clearly enjoying the situation, chimed in. Isabella, what does he want from you? He turned his whole body toward me and added nonchalantly, Why don't you step back? I wasn't about to move, but confronting him was not an option either. Ignoring his pompous attitude, I turned to Isabella. You can manage on your own. I'll see you at home. I knew we were in for a serious discussion, and it was coming. Don't even think about lying to me. I know everything. I've already been informed. I began, striking right at the heart of the matter. What do you know? I had a fling with him once. So what? Are you perfect? Isabella shouted, her voice rising. Get out, I hissed back. She began to frantically gather her belongings around the apartment, and then the door slammed shut, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. The following day, my phone rang incessantly. I saw Isabella's name flash across the screen, but I refused to waver in my decision. I wouldn't subject myself to her hollow excuses. We'd broken up, and she moved back in with her parents, likely grappling with the fallout from our separation. I was relieved that I didn't have to consider myself a fool, that the truth had surfaced thanks to some higher power intervening.